Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? I mentioned it a few times over the weekend where, like, Netherwind Portal strangely feels like an anti-aggro tool because it gives you normally a reasonable sized minion on board to fight back with, whereas Ice Barrier is also, you know, the very straightforward +8 health a lot of the time. But less talking now about that and more talking about this game as we are getting started here. Warma on that Weapon Rogue up top and Viper on, I guess, the deck he really needs a win with here, which is this Spell Mage.
It's so funny to say that he really needs to get a win with Lunacy Mage, but in this particular series, never been more true. Both of the players bringing many aggressive decks. Opener for Viper, not the greatest, but he at least has Font of Power for something to do in the early game. For Warma, the hand's even worse, I gotta say. No weapon, but all the weapon buffs. Yikes.
And the problem is as well, he's nowhere near the mana where he can Secret Passage for a weapon and then laugh, because then he has all the weapon buffs for his weapon he can get there. So he's going to have to play a little bit slower than I imagine he will want to here. And Viper already landing a minion on the board, getting off to not the worst start.
Yeah, that's a pretty good Font. Just gives him something in the early game. And Jandice later on. If this continues at the pace it has been for Warma, then Viper can very realistically just win with Jandice, a couple minions hitting face, and a Pexis Blast before a weapon even comes into the equation. Although probably just going to be Arcane Intellect here.
Yeah, there's the initial thought that Cram Session is going to get a bonus here, right, with the extra spell damage on board. But is there anything he's going to play for 1 mana that makes it worthwhile floating? I think it's probably just better to Arcane Intellect, I agree.
Right. There's the thought that, you know, if the lab partner gets removed, then the Cram Session only draws 1 at that point. But I don't feel he's very likely to draw again next turn. He could just play a Secret and then Jandice. So I think the card draw is mostly spoken for, unless you are saying that I absolutely need to find Lunacy. With this kind of hand, though, it might not be necessary.
Oh, okay, so I imagine we are going to see the... Yeah, so we can go Coin Secret Passage here for Warma. This gives him enough mana to play any of the 4 weapons he has in the deck. Mainly looking for that Self-Sharpening Sword or the Shank.
Yes, the Swine Tusk Shank being the new card, which unfortunately for Warma he has not hit, but because you play Deadly Poisons, Paralytic, and Silver Moon, you're very likely to just get as much or more durability on this as you would with the Self-Sharpening, and then the Deadly Poisons give it a lot of attack. However, very unlucky for Warma to not hit it.
Does still have Swindle though, so that can help out going forward to just get through the deck, thin out a little bit. But in the meantime, Viper, he's just getting stuff done. Refreshing Spring Water looks pretty good here. Flurry definitely feels less powerful against exactly Weapon Rogue, where you freezing the minions often just, there aren't even enough threatening minions to worry about freezing in the first place.
Kind of think Flurry might be the pick though, just so he doesn't overdraw this turn. You could just go like Flurry and Cram Session for 1 cycle. The real question is where Viper's head is at. Is he still in a headspace where he feels like he needs Lunacy to win this game? Looking at his hand, I really don't feel like it's necessary. I feel like the Jandice can get the job done, given that Warma has had such a slow start. If you take the Spring Water here, you're going to have to empty your hand to really get the value out of that. But Spring Water is obviously a great card, so I could see him just taking it, accepting the overdraw. You go Jandice next turn, and at some point you'll get a good Spring Water. That's a very fair assumption to make.
Hey, it's just going to go for that Flurry.
Okay.
Weapon? Oh, weapon. There we go. Warma can now start playing the game the way he wants to. Self-Sharpening Sword plus the Deadly Poison. He's going to start stacking this damage up. And Viper, quite simply now, he's just on the clock.
I mean, even as somebody, even if I didn't hate Mage whatsoever, I'm glad for Warma that that happened, so that we have a real game of Hearthstone on our hands, because Viper gets insane results. Hello, Divine Shield 5/5, and the Totem Goliath, which when it dies will spawn the Taunt Totem.
He probably wants the weakness on the Goliath, right?
What to do?
It's
so that if it dies, it can summon the Taunt.
It's true, but there's also the argument that Viper is now just trying to straight up race Warma. If you look at Viper's hand, there's Fireball, a Pexis Blast, and in that world, you kind of want both these 5/5s to go face, and Warma certainly cannot be bothered to deal with a 5-1 Divine Shield. He just doesn't have the tools for that unless it's exactly Penflinger.
Yeah, tough call,
I
actually.
like the Griffin. I kind of like the Griffin being the illusion. Maybe I'm
But then if that's
visioning on the no
the correct
Penflinger.
play, then surely you pick the Goliath. So Warma, it's got full health.
Oh, I've missed casting with you, Raven.
It's all about the mind games.
Okay, he did take the Golem as the illusion in the end. It's clear though for Warma that he just cannot be bothered to deal with these minions. Especially not the Golem, because you don't want the taunt to appear. Everything is going face, and that is truly the only place it can go.
And now Viper getting to have a little look into the hand of Warma and working out, oh, that's why he just skipped the first 3 turns of the game, because it's all just poison.
Oh, with the prep swindle, Warma could potentially put together lethal next turn.
What if he just pings his Goliath now? That's also the reason why I was thinking about it too.
Yes, he can certainly ping this. I don't think this is the turn to go for it just yet, because he has the ring toss for either spell barrier or counter spell or ice barrier, and if he gets both, that's the best possible outcome. In the meantime, he still gets to push the 5 damage face, and that means he's setting up a defense while also furthering the race game plan I was talking about.
So there's ice barrier.
Another one seems pretty good too.
I think I like Oasis Ally.
Your minions are not getting attacked here. They're just not. I mean, you could force it at some point with the taunt totem, but I think with the ice barrier, the 5 attack on the golem is just super valuable. Look, he's threatening lethal next turn.
That's true. That's
Fireball.
true.
And yeah, Warma's in a spot where it could just be, if you got the ice barrier, good job, GG. But he's thinking here, yeah.
Come closer.
Off of Swindle, if he gets Wicked Stab and Sinister Strike, that's 7 plus... Oh, that's still actually 1 short. So if he gets exactly, from his perspective, Penflinger and Wicked Stab, that's just the game. But of course, there is this ice barrier. Oh my god, he got the thing!
He did get it. But there's nothing he can do about it. He is immune if he attacks, so he
right.
I'm not saying he should, but he could have traded with some minions. We can see it wouldn't have mattered. I think Warma knows it wouldn't have mattered. But it was an option that was available to him there, but you are right. He can draw some cards now, but what does it even have to be at this point? Oh wait, is the hero stealth still in the game? It's not, right?
Oh, the secret? I don't think it is. No. Shadow Clone is, but not Evasion was the name of it. In the end, though, Warma, I think he absolutely did have to go face there. If he spent any turns just hitting into minions, he would still eventually have to deal with Ice Barrier. The only option was to race here. At the same time, though, you kind of understand that it's very unlikely that Viper did not get Ice Barrier with 2 shots off of Ring Toss. In the end, I want to say well played to Viper. There were many cool, cute things you could have done with the Totem Golem, but I think he spotted the right way to go about it, which is utilize the 5 attack on this and just keep it as an illusion in your back pocket for the taunt if necessary.
Yeah, it was 100% as an illusion. It was there if he needed it, right? The ping can happen, as you mentioned. It's probably not going to get traded into. So then it could be, okay, well, if, for example, Warma just gained an even bigger weapon, and he thought, okay, Ice Barrier might not be enough. Okay, I'll ping the totem. I'll attack with the Goliath, and then I'll ping it for the taunt. So didn't end up needing it. But still, good to have it as a tool there. But Viper is going to take game number 1, taking a win with the Mage again. So Warma not getting a win with their, you could argue one of the favoured matchups for this rogue.
Right. I mean, that's really rough for Warma. I think if he's bringing this rogue in the first place, he's looking to bully the Mage at least a little bit. But I don't know if I'm cursed or something, because every Lunacy Mage game I have cast on stream this weekend, the Mage has won. I mean, barring the mirrors, one Mage has to lose. But that's including the games where the Mage doesn't even draw Lunacy early on, which we saw from Viper.
Well, it does mean that Viper's got his own weapon rogue left, along with that Face Hunter, which for me, the Face Hunter feels like the weakest deck, but also no one's really prepared for it either. So maybe that boosts its strength a little bit more, because even some of the odd Face Hunters I've been running into on ladder, you don't realize how fast they can actually go, and no one's really building decks to beat that kind of speed. So we'll see how it plays out, but it looks like he's going to be queuing his rogue in to go up against Warma's Mage. So we're going to have the same matchup but flipped on the either side of the board, of course, and Viper will just be hoping against hope that he can actually draw a weapon a little bit quicker than Warma did.
That's right. I am looking at the rogue list if there's anything different, but it looks like it is just the same 30 cards for 30 cards. Everything 2 ofs, no legendaries, 3,000 dust. 4,000 in this case. It's the token druid that costs 3,000. But you'll love to see it. There are budget options out there for any new players if you so please.
Yeah, I actually think it's like the 4 weapons, right? Most of the dust in that list is like because they're 4 epic weapons, so I think that's it.
I think the self-sharpenings are rare, but
Are they rare? Oh, I thought they were epic. Okay, I take it all back.
Definitely the Swine Tusk. It's confusing because they both kind of have a purple outline on them, so it makes you feel like they're epics. But in any case, we do have the Spell Mage from Warma, which is running, I would say, a bit of a greedier list. Just slightly though, you have one more 7-drop instead of an additional ring toss, but given how important the ring toss was to Viper's game plan last game, it could be the difference maker.
Yeah, it really could, and again, it's just how these... I'm going to just go out on a limb here and say, Lunacy Mage might not be as popular next week based on expected nerfs happening, but I do think the deck building aspect to it, as Sol was talking about on Friday, is very interesting, arguably more interesting than the gameplay of the deck itself. So it really is interesting to see how each player has just, changed a couple of spells here and there to alter what they want the deck to do, but I'm excited to see this matchup once more because Rogue has not been faring too well, but there's a self-sharpening sword in opening mulligan there for Viper, so already looking a lot better. But, Gia, there's a certain good card in Warma's side too, so I guess this is a fair opening for both players.
I did inhale at that, but you're right, the self-sharpening sword this early, there are situations where that can outpace even a Lunacy on curve. It does generally depend on the Lunacy not generating heal, namely Libram of Hope. But if that's not the case, even if it does give a board, sometimes if Viper has had enough weapon buffs on the sword, you can just get there 1 turn earlier than the Mage. Oh, but Warma just has the curve! It's perfect!
Yeah, that is pretty insane. Deck of Lunacy on curve into card draw plus mana generation, which is what Refreshing Spring Water is like pretty absurd here, and I'm not sure if even this hand from Viper is going to be good enough. But again, for example, the cards that Warma could draw could be like all the big removal cards, right? Which against Weapon Rogue are nowhere near as good. If he draws, the Chaos Novas and anything along those lines, Warma could still be in trouble.
It's true. Although, revisiting the deck building aspect we were talking about, it's the 7-cost post-transformation cards that are mostly the removal ones, right? So if you run less of the 4-cost cards, you're less likely to get that. And we do see in Warma's list only 1 ring toss instead of 2. So I suppose slightly better for him for this exact situation. Oh, but here we go. We are going to open the box starting next turn. And there's a couple of cards that would be nuts to get right away, such as Skull. Oh my gosh, Celestial Alignment.
That's a weird one. That is one that I've seen work very well and also terrible when a Mage has played it against me in the past.
Pretty sure that works out badly for Warma. Because Viper really only needs 1 mana per turn. If the game plan is just all in on this weapon, yeah, I'm going to play another poison. That's my turn. Gonna hit your face.
It stops him playing like 4 poisons though, so maybe all it does really is it depends on the cards Warma draws, right? Like if Warma can play Nagrand Slam, then Celestial Alignment, that's probably good enough, right? Because it just stops the response. But if Warma's just getting AoE or minion buffs like his hand is now, then Celestial Alignment will not cut it.
It will certainly depend on what he gets off. This current draw and off of the Spring Water, which he will almost certainly play. Oh my gosh, the Performers. That gives him a solid board.
And the old Malevolent Strike, the casual 0 mana killer thing.
Yeah, and the next turn, all the 1/1s are very likely to stick, and he has Pride's Fury. That's pretty good. I think you can just take the Malevolent, right? And then get all 7 of the 1/1s instead of just having 5 1/1s.
Yeah, that seems
what
reasonable,
minion is
doesn't it?
really scary from Viper here at this point?
I mean, depends what you class as scary, but like Penflinger is the biggest threat to this board, I guess, if you want to phrase it like that. And that's like obviously just, you know, 2 cards in the whole deck there. So Viper's going to go fishing with the 1-maker. Brain Freeze kills 1, but not really what he's after.
He can get the poison to start cycling a bit more. I think he's at a point where even Silverleaf and Paralytic on this. It's tough though, because that would mean...
I think he can prep Silverleaf draw first with the attack, and then
Right.
review the situation again, right?
But then you miss the 1 damage. Is it a break point at this point? It's kind of hard to say. He just needs more charges on this weapon, so he is just going to go all in. As it stands, the 7 is not going to get there. Wicked Stab starts dealing 4 as of next turn, so if he gets the other stab off of Swindle and then Penflinger, I think over 2 turns, that should be able to do it.
I guess the question now is Brain Freeze actually worth playing this turn or not? Like, what if there's a taunt generated next turn? Or, so, you know what I mean? Like, these aren't... Obviously, we can see what's in hand, but they aren't taunts, which is all that really matters, right? Are they taunts? No. Okay, move on.
I really don't think the Brain Freeze is worth it. Even beyond its potential removal ability, it can give him another Penflinger proc, which is important in this situation, even if the Flinger isn't in hand yet. The Warma is going for the alignment here. Ay, ay, ay. Viper cannot combo out Swindle.
Yeah, and this is what I was talking about earlier, where alignment can be either very, very good or trash in Mage. Because if you alignment behind a big board, it's obviously insane, right? But you need that big board. It's just lucky enough that Warma got the Performers and that buff to make them actually a relevant threat.
So what combination of cards can Viper get, given that he only has 2 mana next turn, to deal 13 damage to Warma?
Does he have to, like, just cut in class or something here to try and get something that gives the weapon durability?
There isn't. Because it's not the Swine Tusk.
Oh, right. None of the poisons actually give durability, right? It's only attack. Yeah, I'm being very silly.
Okay. Oh man, it still doesn't get there, even if you got the other stab right off the top. That's 2 damage off. And he can quite clearly see that Warma minimum has 14 damage next turn. So he needs to be able to deal lethal next turn. I just don't think there's a combination of cards that does that for 2 mana. And if Warma's really scared, he can even siphon his own minion.
Wicked Stab D-ranked, right, as well?
Oh, sorry, that's lethal. Yeah. My bad. Yeah.
Powered Fortitude is going to be enough here, and that is just not a game you're going to recover from, as the Lunacy got involved. Obviously, Viper had a great start with the weapon, but again, it's just the board generation into Celestial is backbreaking. Because look at that, if Viper had normal mana at that point, he had tons of card draw to get more damage from somewhere. His Wicked Stabs would have done more damage, and there's a world in which he actually just wins the game, right? The damage gets done, but Celestial alignment just basically cut the legs out from underneath, because as you mentioned as well, although yes, 1 card, 1 poison can be enough, if you don't do it on that turn, it's probably too slow. He got so close though.
Really did. And I'm glad you picked up that D-ranking interaction, because I straight up didn't notice that that's how that works. It's pretty funny. But yeah, for Warma, it really had to be a minion generating board with the Celestial alignment. If it's one or the other, I think Viper still gets the he gets to win the race in that situation. But it was the full 7 minions into a full board Pride's Fury for 1 mana, and that was the perfect storm for Viper to just not be able to outmaneuver.
Yeah, you even see it there, like Cutting Class and Swindle in hand on that last turn. If there was mana available, Viper might have been able to dig himself out of that situation. But it wasn't to be, and now both players have taken wins with the Mage. So now things get very interesting because Viper's lineup is built to beat Mage, and Warma's lineup, although he obviously believes is fine against Mage, isn't quite as, I would say, like narrow in terms of its strategy. We are going to see this Control Priest from Warma, or Cthulhu Priest, as I feel it probably leans more towards, and see how it does against Viper's aggro lineup.
I'm just really worried about the Hunter now from Viper. I'm not sure if it can sneak a win in there, but to be fair, when I've played Face Hunter, it's not been of this exact variant with the 2 Felmaws in there, the Knife Vendors instead of Warsong Wrangler, which I thought that new card was the entire reason for playing this deck, alongside Coldcard Pack Runner, which is also not in this list. Instead of that, Viper has some of these older cards like Scrap Shot. I almost never thought I would see that card back in the light of day again, but Viper's making it work, so I'm really just rooting for this deck, if anything.
Yeah, it is going to be the Rogue for the first matchup, though, against this Priest. And the one weird thing, and I am definitely not the great Priest player, right? Like, I am so far away from being good at Priest, it's unreal. But the one weird thing about these builds, of, you know, like the Cthulhu sort of 3 or 4 late game bombs in the deck, etc., build of Priest, is that they just do nothing for the first, like, 7 turns of the game. So I'm very interested to see how that sort of build of Priest interacts with something where a deck that wants to do everything in the first 7 turns of the game and have won by then. So we'll see how it plays out. Double Swine Tusk Shank there for Viper in his opening hand, but what's it looking like on Warma's side of the board?
A lot of spells, and the Draconic Studies at least gets him a minion, but I was going to say dragons are very expensive after the core set rotation. It's very unlikely to get something playable in the near future for Warma. He does take the taunt though, which, even though it's 1 more mana expensive than the Onyx Mage Scribe, I think just that keyword taunt is infinitely valuable against this weapon rogue. I do think this is a rogue favored matchup, especially since this priest is not running Ooze in it. So Warma is going to have to find additional healing, and Desperate Prayer is already 1 step towards that.
Yep, Desperate Prayer looks pretty good. Alongside, probably Warma will be fishing for a early Samuro. I think that's one of the cards he'll really be after, especially if he can land an Apotheosis on it, because I think he will need some kind of, you know, Reno-style effect of heal to actually survive.
Truly. This version of Priest that is not running Sethic as well, as you might have seen in the APAC region. Again, you mentioned, because it doesn't have very much to do in the early game, it makes Viper's decisions even easier. He doesn't have to sink, say, Penflingers or 1 or 2 charges of his weapon into minions. It's going 1 phase and 1 phase only.
Yeah, and this is what I mean, right? Like, even now, Warma's had not a terrible opening in any way, and next turn there's still nothing really to do. I think he, like, next turn in a perfect world, he'll want to insight into Zerella or Samuro, but even that's not guaranteed, right? So these turns are very, very slow, and Viper's slowly starting to stack up this weapon swings.
Job's done.
And this is just the perfect combination. He gets more attack on the Swine Tusk, and he gets the card draw, so the durability keeps going. At this point, I feel like the self-sharpening is a bit redundant. He would really want a deadly poison right now to make the cutting class free.
Yeah, it's weird, right? The timing of self-sharpening now and what Viper feels he's in, because obviously self-sharpening in general will do more damage in a shorter period of time. Or the Shank's already equipped and buffed up, so does he just try and keep going? But there's the Samuro, there's the Apotheosis. It's not a huge heal. The bigger issue now is more, it's a 3/7 with Apotheosis on it, so...
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, Viper has to deal with that. He just cannot afford for Warma to be healing for 3 every single turn.
Well,
the deadly poison. Yeah, that's an insane pickup from the One Thief. That's exactly what I was saying Viper wanted to draw from his deck. If you can generate it, even better. Can get the pen fling for that last bit of damage, and the cutting class will return it to hand. Works out real nice for Viper here.
Yeah, and considering that was generated, there's obviously still some left in the deck, and if he gets more poisons, this weapon is going to like end up two-shotting Warma at this rate. Also, nice, the immune obviously doesn't proc Apotheosis, right? So even saving that, 3 or 4 health is actually a really big deal. That's what I mean. It's like, okay, it's turn 5. What can I do? Still nothing. I'm just going to get stuff.
Yeah. Well, Cthulhu's spell is... Okay, he did just take the Renew. I was thinking one of the proactive things he can do is one of these Cthulhu's, the body in particular. That's the only proactive one, really. And he can discount a bunch of stuff with palm reading here. So I don't want to count Warma out yet. The name of the game for him really is surviving until he can get this taunt on board. Because you can see it took quite a few resources for Viper to get rid of that Samuro, which effectively had taunt because of the lifesteal.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a similar story for the Skeletal Dragon.
This is the scary factor though, right? Because Viper has played this game going in on Swinetush Shank, then any poison's going to add durability, which means even if the taunt delays Viper a turn, he gets like a swing to kill it, and it's gone. And then he just carries on again because of this, the durability benefit of this Swinetush Shank. So, again, there are different strengths to each of the weapons in this rogue deck, but Viper's making this plus durability very, very powerful here.
Absolutely. I was worried for a second there because Viper still has quite a lot to contend with this turn. He's going to draw even more off of the Silver Leaf. This is the second Silver Leaf, is it?
Yes.
Who draws? Oh my goodness.
And he's got Deadly Poison again.
Yeah, doesn't even need the passage in a world like this. This is pretty much the ideal weapon rogue draw, and this is a priest that is not running any weapon removal whatsoever. Yep.
Oh, there's another one. And this is what I mean, like, the weapon's so good now that even this Skeletal Dragon, to me, it's just way too late, right? Because Viper will just swing into it, kill it. Doesn't take any damage because he's immune on this weapon as well. Draw more cards, go face again, and Warma has to somehow stop him. And frankly, without playing Ooze in his list, which I'm 99% sure he does not, nope, he just can't stop this.
He needs to generate taunt after taunt after taunt, and that's just very unlikely to happen. He has the body of Cthulhu, yes, and the Skeletal Dragon, but doesn't have the other Draconic studies. And in the meantime, Viper, I don't know if he has any poisons left in his deck. It feels like he's played close to all of them, but even just the 4 charges on this looks like it gets there against only 2 taunts.
Yeah, it's looking very strong. And the fact that, like, Viper might not even have to swing into this taunt, right? He has Penflinger, Sinister Strike, potentially Prize Plunder as well to help out, so...
Oh yeah, Prize Plunder is going to get quite a lot of work done here, right? I'm not sure if the Penflinger plus Prize Plunder, some combination can kill the Skeletal without the 8 damage sinking in. Tough. Also, hand space is an issue. Sinister Strike can get played here because it's always just going to deal 3 at some point. And you Penflinger again. It's 3, and then you Swindle. That's 4 cards played. And you had... I wonder... 2 Penflings, and then the Prize Plunder. I think if he gets something cheap off of the Swindle, then the Prize Plunder plus Penflinger can do the job.
Oh, so, double Prize Plunder.
Okay. That just makes the life much easier, right? So just Penflinger, Paralytic, and Plunder should clear the way.
Phase. And also with the double Plunder here, he won't even overdraw, right, with this way? Yeah. I don't think.
Correct.
Yep.
You go up to 8.
Yeah, just more efficiency.
So beautifully for Viper here.
Oh, and even the Cult Neophyte for next turn.
Yeah.
If Warma gets, a combination of heal and a taunt, say, this turn, then the Cult Neo fight can actually really lock out Warma's response to the turn after. And guess what? There's still 4 charges left on this weapon.
But the taunt is rather problematic for Viper at the moment if he doesn't get
No, it's not.
Wicked Stab, but it's there. That's just got to be lethal. Yeah, certainly with the Sinister Strike. Just a clinic put on by Viper on how to play this matchup. Again, we were going into it knowing that the Priest was unfavored, but the quality of draw from Viper this game makes it look like the Priest doesn't even have a 5% chance of getting
right. Well, that's the thing, right? You can even look at this. Of course, Viper went off with the weapon, but bear in mind, there are 4 weapons in the deck. Again, in that instance, obviously, the Shank is the better one, but there are 4 weapons in the deck and about 100 poisons, right? So this is what the deck is built to do. And even if Warma had more health, what were the draws that were going to win him the game, right? I don't even know what he would have to get there to win him that game. So pretty impressive game there. I'm not sure how much of the weapon rogue you've had over in Asia Pacific, but that one game was about 200 times better than any other weapon rogue game I've seen, at least in the European region, because so far it's felt like they just about get there a lot of the time, whereas this looked not even close.
We had a grand total of 0 on stream, at least in Asia Pacific, which is a bit surprising if you just pay attention to that old saying that APAC is full of aggro players. I guess we prefer to go about board-based aggro, but the weapon-based is certainly something to contend with for many of the control priests and mages in the meta game. It does mean, however, now that Viper got a win with the rogue, right? So he should
the graphic
only have to win with the hunter now, and I've been looking forward to this so much.
Yep, don't ignore that graphic just a little bit there. The tick should be on the rogue, not the hunter, as that's the last deck Viper has to get a win with right now. And Warma has this priest once again, and obviously his own weapon rogue. There we go, fixed, thank you. And I will say that although the hunter can go very, very fast, the actual just heal and potential removal from the priest gives it a little bit of a better matchup than, say, versus the weapon rogue, in my opinion.
Right.
Just because there are minions to kill, which priest can try and do, whereas versus weapon rogue there aren't minions to really kill, and also the heal matters, whereas the rogue hitting you for what, like 9 a turn at some points there is unhealable, right? You're just not going to be able to out heal that kind of damage.
I agree. The rogue has this exponential curve, just like how bacterial multiply in terms of the damage they do from turn to turn by virtue of the self-sharpening sword. For hunter, it's a bit more consistent turn to turn linear growth, I want to say. And a lot of that is dependent on minions sticking in the early to mid game. And by virtue of there being minions on board, the priest can get more value out of, say, the Samuro, which maybe some people were surprised to see last game Warma just throw out the Samuro on 1 minion. I think that was still the correct play from Warma because the weapon rogue doesn't need to play more than 1 minion. Sometimes they need to play 0 minions to even win the game. The same is not true for Hunter.
And the thing is, he did get the heal with the Samuro as well because it was Apotheosis, right? So he did recover some health. Going to be way stronger versus Hunter if it's that type of game. We will see the opening mulligans right now, and I am very interested to see how this goes. Okay, well, less interested now because that was one of the most straightforward mulligans I've ever seen. You don't want any of those cards. That's not going to make it into your mulligan guide in any way, shape, or form. So that looks a lot better here for Viper.
A lot, but still not ideal. I'd say Intrepid Initiate is the premier one to get. But okay, if you get Refa, then that kind of balances out the damage you would have gotten from the 3-2 in the ideal world. Again, this Face Hunter list from Viper is different from the one we were seeing from Surrender. No War Song Wrangler, no Call Card Pack Runner. It instead has a lot of the older cards, and the new one that it's featuring, I believe, is the Knife Vendor. Which I'm gonna go ahead and highlight right here. Really reminds me of just a better Nightblade, huh?
Yeah, it's very interesting as well because there are setups where you can just play for a draw in certain instances with that card, so that gets pretty interesting. Probably won't happen in this game, of course, but it can happen. So moving back on here, the double piercing shot is probably not what Viper wants to see right now. It's definitely how you want to really end the game against a deck like Priest that doesn't play early game minions, right? Like, it's not like Viper needs to scramble for the board at this point. It's like, he just needs his piercing shots to hit 1 health minions late game.
This is certainly far from the ideal draw for Viper. He was looking for the Felmaz. If you're not running the Kolkar Pack Runner, then you certainly have to run something else to shore up your turn 2, turn 3, and give you pressure. The Felmaz are the card to do that. He just did not have access to them, and the hand is so clunky that it's going to be difficult to get quick shot to even draw him a card. It's just kind of a nightmare of a situation, and Warma has so much healing available to him that he can just sit pretty.
Yeah, this is one of the struggles that Viper's going to have, I mentioned earlier, and we even see now piercing shot, just bank it, bank the 5, even though we can see it's going to get, you know, easily dealt with the Desperate Prayer.
It could be just renews here. There's just so many ways for Warma to not care. I do think Desperate Prayer is probably going to be saved in conjunction with Zyrella, because that's a breakpoint that gets rid of, say, this Trampling Rhino, which Viper is very likely to play for no immediate damage next turn. Okay, never mind. There is a minion on board now. Okay, no immediate damage, but it's a trade if he wants it. Or he could go Scrap Shot.
Could go like
Volpertinger, Scrap Face.
Shot,
yeah. It's damage. Scrap Shot is a card that we saw in GM from Staz, I believe, last year. It is not from the new expansion, but it was hardly played in previous expansions, where it's 4 mana, deal 3, but you get to buff a beast in your hand. Of course, Viper here can guarantee that that's the Rhino, so the Rhino can then have 8 attack and potentially deal 3 by trampling over the Senjin. Next turn. I can't believe Senjin is still in Standard. It just survived the core set rotation.
It's irreplaceable. It is just an icon at this point of Hearthstone. I think, at least. I think like the 4 mana 3/5 taunt is just the so memorable in general. But Volpertinger looks like he's going to be the choice. But actually, Viper going with piercing shot, because he can always scrap shot hero power next turn. And what this does is it at least keeps 2 1/1s on board, and it doesn't give the Senjin just an easy kill anywhere. Like, maybe Viper gets these to hit face once, and that's what you've got to do with this type of hunter, is you've got to get every single point of damage possible.
That's fair. I mean, Viper also was respecting Apotheosis clearly there. I was in a headspace where I was like, if they have the Apple, I've lost already. That's just how bad my opening hand was. But I think Viper has the right idea for sure here. Warma has too many good options that I don't know which one is the best. Probably Zyrella, you should still save that. But the problem is, if it's just Condemned this turn, he's still not really developing anything on board.
I think you can get away with KT, right? Like, I think that's a pretty good play. 6 health is a big ask. He's seen 2 piercing shots. If it lives, then you don't care as much about the spell burst ability, but if it lives, it's a good target for Apotheosis, going to heal for 6, like, and have tons of health. I think this is a really nice play here from Warma.
Certainly. Viper also going to respect the spell burst on this.
But again, Viper going to get the value here, the extra durability from Headhunter's Hatchet with the minion on board. Gets to push 1 to the face, but then also now has potentially Rhino hero power, and then X into Quick Shot to draw another card is probably the way Viper's going to path this out.
I think Warma knows what's up. It's pretty obvious to make the read on the Rhino here after, you know, Volpertinger in a vacuum. That's a pretty good target for Scrap Shot. What's better than that? Trampling Rhino is, to me, the only answer. So if Warma doesn't play a minion, that means the Rhino doesn't immediately get any damage, and then Warma can set about removing that with some combo of Zyrella instead. Viper still has to play it here. I don't think he has any time to just wait, because if he doesn't play the Rhino this turn, it's very unlikely you get the draw off of the Quick Shot.
Let me work my magic.
Oh, okay.
I actually like this because Warma can't keep playing nothing, right? Like, that can only last so long. The second he plays a minion, Viper can get some damage with Rhino. Whereas if Viper plays Rhino, he gives Warma a very good turn and then doesn't have a way to kill the Zyrella. So if he does it this way, it looks slower and it looks like it might be just losing anyway, but this doesn't give Warma a good turn, whereas if he played the Rhino just on board doing nothing, it would have actually caused a problem for Viper, I think.
I think it causes problems if you have the read on the Zarella in hand, and fair play to Viper, it is there. But my headspace, if I could not see Warma's hand, would be that the situation is bad enough that if they have the Zarella, you're going to lose either way. Because that board of 1-1 and 1-2 loses to like Holy Smite, to like you saw the Condemn there. And essentially Viper is only able to deal 2 damage per turn the longer he waits. And the longer he waits, the less likely you get the draw off of the quick shot. It just feels like cascading problems to me where, you know, Warma, even if he doesn't play minions, could very well just wait you out with Renew and that type of thing.
Right. We just see a slight disconnected issue there. Warma did have a couple of these yesterday too, but it's fine. The game continues as normal. But this might be going crazy, but I actually really like the hold. Now there has to be 8 damage here for 8 sort of healing, I guess, sorry, for Warma to be able to do this. He can do this pretty easily, of course, and this might just be the end of the game. But I do like Viper holding off on the Rhino.
And if he was going to play it this turn, it's just pretty much the same problem as last turn, except Warma had 1 more draw. So in the end, I still would have preferred to see Rhino 1 turn earlier.
Yeah, I think the idea might have been, depending on what he drew, right? It would have been better or worse. Him only drawing a... I forgot the name of the card now, I'm being stupid. The Wound Prey. Like, if he'd drawn something a little bit better than just Wound Prey, then I think it would have been a great decision. Obviously, he didn't, so it looks a lot worse.
Sure.
Now a 7 mana Alexstrasza, like that's another 8 healing if he wants it.
Could even be damage at this point.
Yeah.
Because this Apotheosis is going to stick on Zarella, so I don't think Warma needs that much additional healing. Okay, the stats on the Knife Vendor means that actually, it's still probably just Apotheosis, right?
Yeah, I think it might even just be Samuro Apotheosis, right? Is that just better?
Sure, more healing immediately. And gets to push the 4 face.
And I think here it's a reminder of what Face Hunter is capable of. Warma's healed for like 1 million this game, and he's still on 14. Obviously, this is before this Samuro turn. So, you know, Hunter can get the job done, even in longer and slower games. As in the history of Hearthstone, we've seen Hunter winning like fatigue sort of games as well in some scenarios, so it is pretty crazy. But with that much healing available and Viper just not getting the chain of minions required, and quite frankly him using up the piercing shots or having to use the piercing shots so early, like look, that piercing shot did 1 to face, like that's not what you want from Hunter. This weapon got was used to trade a couple of times, like it was definitely a tough matchup, but honestly with the healing available there for Warma, I think we expected it to be a tough one for Viper there.
It's true. I mean, on the one hand, I would say that Hunter struggles even if it does have that reach against most other decks, because you can see that Priest just didn't play many minions at all until the mid game. On the other hand though, Viper absolutely drew the wrong half of his deck for the first half of the game. It was not the best 1-drops to start, and then the double piercing shot, which kind of stranded his quick shot for the longest time. That is not what you really want to see. However, Viper still has his last chance on the Hunter against the Weapon Rogue, and if you do have that many 1-drop type start against Weapon Rogue, that can be one way to try and race them. Getting a fortunate, say, Kolak off of Demon Companion is a way to try and offset the weapon damage on the other side.
Yeah, it's a strange matchup, isn't it? Because Weapon Rogue most of the time will not want to trade at all. And we saw how minion light the Weapon Rogue can be with certain draws. And these 1-1s, for example, well, what does Warma do? And if he doesn't want to do anything, then he's going to take 2 damage every single turn, and then that's going to start stacking, right? So obviously the turn self-sharpening sword comes down. Yes, the first swing can trade, no problem, but honestly, swings after that, he really won't want to be trading because he'll simply take too much damage.
It is true. However, both these players' reactions are seemingly very upset with their hands. I think it's more so for Viper because his hand after this Volpertinger is just straight trash. Look at this. Scrap shot, wound pray.
If you put scrap shot in your deck on purpose, then you can't be upset when you see them. That's the rule. I don't like that card, in case you didn't guess.
Yeah.
but yeah, you know, it's not great at all, but I think he just goes hero power here, pushes one to face, and continues.
It's really the only line. The next turn is, you have the curve. It is wound pray hero power into scrap shot buff your Rhino, and then the Rhino tramples something, but my goodness, is that slow.
And use wound pray here. Obviously it'll cost extra mana, but he can clear this off and effectively heal himself for 3 with this play.
Okay, wait, I'm seeing some potential in this hand from Viper now. The problem is Warma might not even play any minions once he sees that the turn is scrap shot, because you can have a pretty solid read, I would say, on given that Viper had such a slow start, that it's something like Rhino.
The problem is, though, even if he doesn't play minions, well, scrap shot and then play a Rhino, well, Warma can't ignore that minion, right? Even though it doesn't get the rush effect, you can't just ignore it.
And that's why I'm kind of surprised that Warma didn't immediately go for poison and start attacking here, because I feel like the race is on. It was on last turn. It was on the second Viper started pressing the hero power button.
Yeah, one of the benefits, though, is he does have that paralytic poison in hand, so if the weapon gets big enough with the help of deadly poison, he can actually just kill the Rhinos, right, without taking damage himself. So maybe that's what he's thinking. Maybe thinking because he has the paralytic, he can take down some of the bigger minions.
True, but it's not immediate, right? Because I like the idea of getting that attack in so you can already start buffing your weapon. The Rhino, if it gets scrap shotted, is up to 8/8. But in the end, Viper actually prioritizes alternate board presence, which I can respect as well, because the one single Rhino doesn't have a minion to charge into the next turn.
Yeah, and also, being completely honest, the scrap shots are probably more in there as 4 mana deal 3 to the face, as opposed to having the, you know, it all being about buffing the beasts. I think the highest value of it is just 3 damage from hand. It definitely doesn't have to rush this. That's a bad choice of words. He doesn't have to play these scrap shots super early.
Warma, I think it's worth it for him to brain freeze the Volpertinger. He just doesn't want to take any more face damage from this point on, right? What is he prepping? I guess getting more Penflinger shots, but it feels awfully slow.
Yep, just get the 3 off the board.
And Viper can start with the first Rhino now, at a point where it's left with enough health on it that Warma doesn't really want to just swing his weapon into it. And Warma is really upset to see that. Ay. He can kill the Rhino, but he leaves the Penflayer on the board. Might be the play.
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Like,
I think so too.
Obviously, we can see it running into another Rhino with like 1 health is obviously great for Viper, but would you rather just get hit in the face? And he is dealing 6 extra to face with these Sinister Strikes. So, yeah, I think it's okay.
In the grand scheme of things, Viper still gets the longer end of the stick because, like you said, the Penflinger will get trampled by a Rhino with Adorable Infestation, so that's 5 to the face. And the minion sticks, so Warma has that problem for next turn too. But Warma really just did not have a choice here. He hates to see it, but honestly, it's not like Viper had an amazing opening hand. I just kind of wonder...
Oh, he's going to trade.
He has to here, because he just doesn't have reach in hand. I was going to say, I just kind of wonder if we could have seen a different race to this story had Warma attacked face with the prep deadly poison like a couple of turns ago. Because even though we could see it's still potentially just not lethal on that next turn, it would have given him top deck outs to perhaps win the race. So...
Actually likes like scrap shot hero power here. Is that crazy? Or maybe even scrap
it's
shot,
not.
just Cub instead.
Yeah. Certainly not crazy. Scrap shot, yeah, the Cub is for sure buffed. It's just really hard to figure out the
I think you
here.
I think you scrap shot the minion because your opponent blinked first. He traded. He's got one more swing and he's got one card in hand. So you can scrap shot this minion, take the 3 damage off the board. He can push one now. He can play a big Cub. He still has a scrap shot, a quick shot as well next turn, plus hero power. Like, he will win this race unless the draw off the top here for Warma is perfect.
Agreed. Has to be secret passage, something like that. Okay, he gets 1 cycle off of this.
Oh, does he? Does he ever swing, then equip Shank and do the poison on the Shank instead? He's only going to get 1 draw from this poison if he does it now.
I don't think he has the time. I think the 1 draw needs to be perfect, and that's his way out of the game. Because, yes, he can swing and have the immune, but Viper at that point, if his hand is more minions, same problem as last turn, and you still don't have the lethal because the 7 did not go face. If it's all burst, same thing. Viper just has to press the button a couple more turns. I really think Warma's out is take this 1 draw, hope it's either passage this turn or next, and then try to rip the stabs and the... Yeah, he already played the Sinister Strike, so rip the stabs.
I think if it was me, I would trade the 4/4, equip the Shank, and then put the poison on it. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that's what I would do in this instance. Because
I mean,
you get so many card draws and you only leave a 1/1 on the board and you're on 16, right? You're not going to get 1 shot next turn. So this gives him at least a few draws.
I mean, obviously it's a very close decision. Warma agrees with you in the end. I just don't think 16 is very much at all against Hunter on 8 mana.
Especially now, like Adorable Infestation, Scrap Shot, to then create another 4/4. Looks good to me. And then just hero power. And then next turn he has Demon Companion for, to potentially buff or push some extra damage next turn.
It's just too much.
Looks good.
In this situation, Warma has no 2-turn out, right? And even if it wasn't this from Viper, even if it was just, say, like, piercing shot your own minion, and then hero power, and then the next turn is another piercing shot or scrap shot, Warma still doesn't win that race. So, again, my line was still relying on a Hail Mary. I'm just saying I think the Hail Mary was his only realistic out.
Prize Plunder doesn't look like it's going to cut it. Even versus the board, never mind the other cards we can see with Quick Shot plus card off the top.
Oh, it's so close though. It really came down to the wire and right down to game 5. And even though I was saying I was really looking forward to this Hunter getting a win, I was looking forward to it beating up on Mage because obviously not a big
leave the
Mage
rogues
fan
alone.
And that is gonna do it. Quick Shot, Knife Vendor, take your pick. Viper has built this deck to have the maximum amount of burst.
Oh, okay. Viper going for full efficiency, just pressing the hero power. And now it's going to be the game. That is going to be the series. And Viper does it once again. Not in the way we saw it yesterday, taking down the Mage game after game, but his decks were good enough to take down Warma. So a big victory for him. And he is going to be facing Tice in the finals. Like, what a great finals for the first week here.
Super exciting. I mean, these are 2 of the OG European players, 2 of the most storied, 2 that have been to the World Championships, and 2 that I feel have a very interesting matchup on their hand because while Viper has gone for a hyper-aggressive lineup with the Hunter, the Weapon Rogue, Tice has gone for even more control than I would usually expect with the Warlock in there instead of Priest, and maybe that has a bit more teeth against the Weapon Rogue, for example. Who knows?
Yeah, it's going to be very